What's going on, everybody? Russell Clay here for another edition of Clay's Corner. It is December 2nd. As I'm recording this, it'll probably be up tonight. Let's talk about process here. And the process I want to talk about today is evaluating a wide receiver, both from a season-long and long-term perspective. I'm going to jump in and show you a bunch of different things that I look for when I'm evaluating a player and whether they might ascend or whether they are, not necessarily built for long-term potential. So let's get right into it. I only have one player I'm going to talk about today, but we are going to go through the full line of logic here from college to the draft to early career to what I think their career is going to be. So we're going to go through the whole thing in hopefully 10 minutes, though I feel like every episode I say 5-10 minutes and then it's 13 to 20. So we're going to give it our best shot here. Let's jump right into it. So who is it? Josh Palmer, just because I think he fits so many dynamics that I look for. And also he fits so many things that are valuable early in the process and before everyone is sort of looking at these players. So for those of you that don't know, Josh Palmer, 23 years old, out of Tennessee. He played in college. We'll get into that in a little bit. But he was a third-round pick in the 2021 NFL draft. Now, those are a lot of factors right there in themselves, which we will talk about. But for now, just keep that in mind. You don't need to know anything about football other than those are the factors we have right now, raw materials. So Josh Palmer has not been playing much this year. As you can see, his snaps have been between, early part of the year, he's playing about 10 to 30%. Had that one game where Mike Williams got hurt. And then, he's kind of been funneling slowly but surely into the offense more every week. So what we're kind of looking at here from a rookie in general, any type of rookie, I don't care about draft capital. I don't care about what type of wide receiver they are or whatever. Are they playing more snaps? Are they getting on the field or not? Because that is not a given. I think a lot of times people look at a CeeDee Lamb or, back in the day, DeAndre Hopkins or something like that and say, all right, that guy's a starter playing 80% of the snaps from week one. That's the way things should go. The truth is most wide receivers have to earn their stripes, especially a guy like Palmer, who was the third round pick. And we'll get into some of those numbers on third round picks in a bit. But this guy had to work his way up, right? He's playing on a depth chart with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. We'll talk about that as well. This offense is already kind of established. He's got to build his role. And when you look at these offensive snaps, right, he's not necessarily producing from a fantasy perspective. In fact, he's really hitting into that 15 to 30 receiving yard range every week, but he's not bumping above that. He's not really scoring touchdowns. He had that one. So he's keeping a low profile from a season-long standpoint, but the snaps are going up. As you can see, those 3 straight weeks above 30% of the snaps. Last week, 42%. Ding, ding, ding. That's a signal. That's a signal. Whether it means they're phasing out Jared Cook or something, clearly they're seeing enough in practice, in these games, on these snaps that he's playing. They're seeing enough to give him a little more here and a little more there. And that 12% boost from that previous 3-week stretch is a signal to me. So how do we figure out if Josh Palmer is worthwhile when he's not producing? So that's where some of these other factors come in. So we're going to get off of this page. We're going to go into his college profile. All right. So what are we looking at here? And some of this stuff you're not going to know based on the box score. So I will fill in some information here. Palmer, he was a 4-year player at Tennessee. 6'1", 210 is what he weighed in at the combine as well, or his pro day. So that's around his size. He was used as mainly a deep threat, some really exciting plays as that sort of deeper threat in college, but he was in a very dysfunctional Tennessee offense, which caused some issues for him from a production standpoint. So he was a starter for 3 years, which is a great sign. Did get on the field as a freshman, but became a full-time starter in 2018, and then stayed in that range for a couple of years. So he was a starter for a Power 5 conference school in Tennessee with other NFL caliber players on the team. We can go into the full profile another day. That's all we really need to know now. Deep threat, right? Deep threat. Starter for multiple years, and has some big plays on his profile. And again, if you watch the film, that's kind of what he profiled as well. Made some really nifty plays in the red zone. So we come over here now. All right. Next factor, not an impressive production profile. But what does his athleticism look like? So I go to playerprofiler.com a lot. It has all the data that you want to look for from a, athleticism standpoint. They also have some numbers about, what his college production looked like. There's a lot more context to that, so maybe hold off on that. But, that stuff's there for you. So big wide receiver. 4.57 40 at his pro day, 4.52 at his pro day. That's about a 58th percentile speed score. For those that don't know what that is, it's basically your 40 time adjusted for your weight. So 4.57 at 210 pounds is actually pretty good, well above average in the grand scheme of things. So 58th percentile, pretty good. He's not going to blow the doors off anything, but he's a pretty good athlete, right? And these are pro day numbers, so take them with what they are. But okay, so there's another box we're looking at with this context of Josh Palmer. Solid athlete, not a great one, but right around an average NFL wide receiver athlete. So we have the production profile, not so great, but all right. We have the athleticism, solid, so pure Josh Palmer prospect profile, not great, but he was an intriguing guy. However, 3rd round draft pick. And this is where things get really important for me, because when you're looking at NFL draft position, I did a series this summer called Rookie Expectations and what we're supposed to be expecting from players based on NFL draft round. It adds a lot of context to what we're looking at. So the fact that, and we'll look at career perspective for these picks in a second, but so where does Josh Palmer fit in from a rookie season perspective, right? So these numbers are basically the percentages of wide receivers in these draft rounds that produced a solid rookie season. So if you're a 1st round wide receiver, 1/4 of the time, or 27.7%, about a quarter of the time we're expecting you to have a good rookie year. 2nd rounders, 1 in 7, 1 in 8 really breaks out as a rookie. So we're looking at Elijah Moore there. And then, 3rd rounders, 5%. So 5%, that's 1 in 20 3rd round wide receivers really breaks out as a 1st year player. So just knowing that, we shouldn't have been expecting Josh Palmer to break out in year 1 from the beginning. Going into his rookie year, we should not have expected any type of big production as a rookie. And as you can see, this whole round, Josh Palmer, Diami Brown, Amari Rogers, Nico Collins, Anthony Schwartz. None of them really had that year, which makes sense because, you know, 1 in every 20, that means that's not going to happen every class. So for every Terry McLaurin or Mike Wallace, there's going to be, you know, a lot of guys who take time to develop. But with that context, we can say, all right, so maybe Josh Palmer isn't breaking out, but he is playing more snaps than Amari Rogers, more snaps than Anthony Schwartz, more snaps than Diami Brown. So he is distancing himself. Now, the reason why this is so important is because Josh Palmer's a rookie, and you'd want to compare him to Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, et cetera, Rashad Bateman, Kadarius Toney. You want to compare him to those types of players because they're the names we think of. But when you look at the third round, it's kind of like weight classes in MMA or wrestling. You want to compare players to the players in their weight class, right? Third rounders, probably shouldn't expect anything from them in year one. We're not getting anything from Josh Palmer, but we should have expected that. So that's a little context there. But then you go to the career, right? So look at the third round here. And I think this is, you know, kind of important. So this is probability of career seasons accumulating 800 yards from scrimmage. So if there's a third round wide receiver, that means 1 in 3 or 31%, around 1/3 of third round wide receivers will have a pretty productive year in their career, 800 plus yards from scrimmage. They'll at least be on fantasy radars before they're done. So that's really good, right? In the grand scheme of things, go down and look at 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders. You know, 14% of 4th rounders get a really productive season. 9% of 5th rounders, and then you go to 6th and 7th round, it's almost none of them. So 31%, that's high. That we should be optimistic about Josh Palmer, and that's why I'm kind of framing this whole video in an optimistic light, because him getting on the field in year one is a good sign. That's a good sign for Josh Palmer. So 31% create a productive year. About 1/5 have 2 years, and then, you know, about 1 in 9 really put together a nice career with 3+ productive years. So that's kind of our range of outcomes for Josh Palmer. I wouldn't necessarily, from a prospect profile standpoint, put him at the top of this range just on his own. However, when you look at the context of the situation he's in, that's where we should get excited, because he has a potential franchise quarterback connected to him for his rookie deal. And we've seen a lot of quarterbacks, special quarterbacks over the years, create high-end fantasy weapons. And we see those wide receivers soak up all that high-end quarterback play and become probably even a little better than they should have been in those optimal situations. So we have all that context down, right? Then we have Mike Williams. Mike Williams is the deep threat for the Los Angeles Chargers this year. Mike Williams getting paid $15 million this year. Mike Williams having a good enough year to where he's going to command a lot of money on his next contract. Mike Williams is an unrestricted free agent in 2022. Okay, so why is this so important? This is important because if Mike Williams even tests free agency, people are going to look at that depth chart. People are going to come over here, look at this depth chart and say, all right, who benefits from this? Is it 35-year-old Jared Cook? Is it Jalen Guyton, who's an undrafted free agent and has lost snaps this year? Is it Donald Parham? Is it Keenan Allen, who's 30 years old and already in an every down high-end volume role. No, everyone's going to go, oh, Josh Palmer, their pick last year that was playing snaps, he's going to be the guy that's going to get this, and you're going to see him shoot up from an ADP standpoint, average draft position standpoint, in all areas. So if Mike Williams, even if he ends up coming back, there's going to be a few months this offseason where people are like, oh, Mike Williams testing free agency, Josh Palmer's the new deep threat. And whether we think Josh Palmer is good enough to fill in for Mike Williams or not is not important. What's important is we know the news story before it's happening. And that's the big thing I want all of us as Fantasy Guru subscribers to understand today. We can pick out the headline before it happens. So we already know that headline's going to happen. If Mike Williams tests free agency, Josh Palmer is going to be a huge boost. And that's half the battle in Dynasty. But also, if you're doing early offseason best ball drafts, you can get Josh Palmer in the 16th round. He could be a 9th round pick a few months later. So that's the next and really final factor here for today. But again, that's how we're chaining together logic here. That's how we're finding the stories before the stories happen. We are preemptively looking for them. So I hope this provides some context on Josh Palmer. Again, we look at the prospect profile. We look at how many snaps are they playing in the NFL offense? What was their draft position? What's their offensive structure? Are there any circumstances that are optimizing or de-optimizing them? Then we look at the roster. Can they bulk past or push past anyone on that depth chart? And then finish off with what's to come in the next year or so. So a lot of factors to look at. I know I just gave you guys a lot of information, but this is the process. This is how the meat gets made. And so when you see those write-ups on trending or targets and touches, that's what I'm thinking about. And that's where I'm going with some of this stuff. So as always, I thank you guys for tuning in. This was really fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I will see you guys next week.